Now, Midoriya has completed his training at workplace training. This makes Midoriya happy, because he has learned how to use One for All and caught the hero killer. But, Gran Torino said it was because Stain wasn't fighting seriously. So, he told Midoriya to train even harder. He said, if you want to become a great hero like All Might, you still have a lot to learn. So, Midoriya promised to keep trying and left. But, Gran Torino feels that Midoriya is very similar to All Might, and he is the one deserving to inherit One for All. Suddenly, Gran Torino asked, "What's your name?" This made Midoriya think he was getting senile, but Midoriya quickly realized and said, "My name is Deku, because that is Midoriya's hero nickname." At this time, Midoriya's class has completed their workplace training. This made them all very happy, while Ochako was still passionately training in combat. Everyone knew that Midoriya and Shoto had faced Stain, but because of the commitment to the chief of police. So, everyone thought Endeavor had saved them. At this time, All Might's class had begun. It turned out he wanted to check the results of their workplace training, and he would organize a race, inside a simulated city, to see who would rescue him first. So, Midoriya's group and Iida would compete first, while everyone thought Midoriya would be at a disadvantage, because his quirk was too dangerous, so, they all thought Iida would win. When the race just began, they all immediately used their quirks and took off. Unexpectedly, Midoriya had managed to control his quirk, and he moved very quickly, surprising everyone. Bakugo realized Midoriya was using his movement technique, making him angry. Although Midoriya could only use 5% of One for All, he still had to concentrate on controlling it. Suddenly, Midoriya slipped and fell. Thanks to that, Honda won the race. This made Midoriya very disappointed, because he needed to train even more. But, All Might was very surprised by his progress. So, All Might encouraged Midoriya and said, "It's time I tell you the truth about One for All and myself." Finally, their training session ended, leaving Midoriya very curious about All Might's words. Suddenly, Mineta invited Midoriya to peek into the girls' locker room. It turned out he had discovered a small hole, so, Mineta eagerly peeked, and he listed the names of the attractive girls he wanted to see. Unexpectedly, Mineta got stabbed in the eye by an earphone jack. It turned out Kyoka had stabbed him, because she was the only one Mineta didn't mention. In the afternoon, after school, Midoriya went to the office to find All Might. Seeing All Might being very serious, made Midoriya anxious. At that moment, he realized Stain had thrown Midoriya's blood. This made Midoriya anxious, because One for All is transferred through DNA. So, All Might explained to Midoriya, as long as the owner of One for All doesn't want to, it won't be passed to anyone else. All Might then told Midoriya about the origin of One for All. It turned out this quirk originated from All for One. All for One is a quirk that can steal other people's quirks, and it can also distribute the stolen quirks to others. This has given the holder of All for One overwhelming power, and he had many followers. In the blink of an eye, he established a large villain organization, capable of helping him dominate the world. But, some couldn't withstand the quirks he distributed, causing them to lose consciousness and become Nomu. However, All for One had a younger brother who was quirkless, and his brother always opposed him, because the younger brother disliked All for One's rule. Nonetheless, All for One gave his brother a quirk that had the ability to stockpile power. But, he didn't know his younger brother had a quirk called Bestowal. So, those two quirks combined and created One for All. All Might also told Midoriya that All for One had existed for a very long time, but he possessed an anti-aging quirk, making him nearly immortal and the symbol of evil. However, his younger brother continued to pass on One for All to successive generations, until this power could finally defeat him. And when it was All Might's turn, he managed to defeat All for One. But, All Might realized All for One had returned, so, he wanted Midoriya to take on the responsibility of stopping him. Unexpectedly, Midoriya immediately agreed. However, All Might realized he didn't have much time left to be with Midoriya. The next morning, Aizawa announced to the class that they would have a forest training camp. This made the whole class very excited, but before that, they had to pass the final exams. On the side of All for One, he realized that the capture of the hero killer would attract more people to the League of Villains, and Tamura would become their leader, because he was the successor chosen by All for One. At this time, Aizawa announced that the final exams would take place in 1 week, so, they had to concentrate and study hard, making everyone worried, because they didn't have enough time to study. However, Mineta was very confident, because he ranked 9th in the class, while Midoriya was 4th, Lita was 2nd, and Shoto was 5th. It turned out Momo was ranked 1st. So, they asked Momo to help them study for the final exams. Seeing everyone trust her, Momo agreed, making her very happy, while Kirishima advised Bakugo to calm down a bit, so they could ask him for help. Midoriya's group had lunch together at this time. They were confident about the written tests, but they had no confidence in the exercise test, because they didn't know anything about it. Suddenly, Nato came to taunt Midoriya's group, because they had encountered the hero killer. And now they were quite famous. Nato warned them that danger was approaching. However, Kendo intervened and struck Nato, to prevent him from continuing to taunt others, and she informed Midoriya's group that the exercise test would resemble entrance exams, similar to fighting villain robots. Then, she escorted Nato away. When Midoriya's class learned they would face villain robots, they felt more confident. Meanwhile, Bakugo was furious, because he realized Midoriya had mastered one for all. He even mimicked Bakugo's movements. So Bakugo said, "I will defeat you," and he challenged Shoto as well. On Mina's team, they went to Momo's house, which surprised them, because her house was very wealthy, so they started studying for the final exams. Now, the final exams had arrived. Thus, everyone tried their best on the written tests. When Aizawa announced the end of the exam time, Mina's team was very happy, because thanks to Momo, they passed this exam. And next up was the exercise test, so they immediately changed into their hero costumes, thinking they would fight villain robots. Unexpectedly, the test topic had changed. When the principal announced they would form teams of 2 to battle the teachers here, it surprised them. They didn't expect Midoriya and Bakugo to be a team, and their opponent was none other than All Might, which shocked them. Then, the other matchups were also arranged. Within 30 minutes, they had to handcuff their teacher, or one of the two had to escape the arena. Then, they would win. But for the teachers to be fair to the students, they had to wear weights equal to half their weight. So, the exercise test began. Kirishima and Sato were a team. Very quickly, they encountered their teacher. It turned out they would fight Cementos. Kirishima immediately used his quirk hardening, and Sato activated his quirk Sugar Rush. When he consumes sugar, his strength increases 5-fold for 3 minutes. So, they attacked Cementos together, and they smashed through the concrete walls he created. Ochako was thrilled because they had the upper hand, but Midoriya pointed out their weakness was time, which made Kirishima angry, because they were surrounded by Cementos's concrete walls. Sato began to feel exhausted. This pushed them to their limit, and Cementos swiftly defeated them, surprising everyone, as they were the first to lose in the initial round. Meanwhile, Tsuyu and Fumikage were battling ectoplasm. It turned out his quirk was clones, and he immediately surrounded them. Suddenly, Fumikage threw Tsuyu away, so she used her tongue to pull Fumikage along. Midoriya realized they were trying to escape, because they knew they couldn't win, but ectoplasm continued to create clones to capture them. So, they cooperated to overcome him. Midoriya noticed Tsuyu was very capable of supporting her teammates. At this point, they had overcome many of ectoplasm's clones, so he created a gigantic clone, which surprised them. Thus, ectoplasm immediately attacked and caught both of them. But Fumikage didn't give up. He commanded Dark Shadow to attack ectoplasm, while Dark Shadow kept ectoplasm occupied. Tsuyu retrieved handcuffs from her stomach. It turned out she had swallowed them before the match started, so Dark Shadow captured ectoplasm. Thanks to this, they passed the test. Ectoplasm praised both of them. On Ida's team, they were battling Powerloader. They realized there were many traps on the way to the exit. So, Lida carried Ojiro on his back, and he ran towards the gate at incredible speed. But, Powerloader stopped them. So, Lida kicked Ojiro over Powerloader to fly to the gate. Finally, they won the battle, making Midoriya and Ochako very happy. Now, it was Shoto and Momo's turn. Their opponent turned out to be Aizawa, which made Momo very worried. Suddenly, Aizawa appeared and attacked them. He used his quirk, Erasure, so Shoto couldn't use his quirk. Aizawa realized Shoto was trying to hold him back, to let Momo escape. He quickly caught Shoto, then, he chased after Momo, while Momo was worried, because she had to run fast to reach the gate. But, Aizawa caught up and caught Momo, so, Momo immediately used her quirk creation to help herself escape from Aizawa's binding cloth. Aizawa realized Momo had lost confidence after her defeat in the sports festival. Suddenly, Momo was running towards Shoto's direction. It turned out she wanted to save Shoto, but Aizawa quickly pursued her, leaving Momo unsure of what to do. So, Shoto encouraged Momo, and he believes that Momo has her own strengths. So, Shoto helped her regain her confidence, and Momo threw a bomb at Aizawa. It turned out to be a flash bomb that temporarily blinded Aizawa, and Momo managed to save Shoto. Now, Aizawa's eyes had recovered, and he immediately attacked both of them. Shoto realized Aizawa's erasure quirk prevented them from using their quirks, so Momo told Shoto to run away, because she realized Aizawa couldn't use erasure for too long, and she timed the moment when Aizawa blinked. Momo instructed Shoto to use his ice to attack Aizawa. Thanks to that, they managed to temporarily prevent him. Suddenly, Shoto noticed Momo was creating Aizawa's binding cloth. It turned out she had devised a plan to capture him. At this point, Aizawa saw them, so he immediately chased after them. Little did he know, it was just a decoy set by Momo, and Momo shot the binding cloth at Aizawa, allowing Shoto to use fire to heat up the binding cloth. Thus, they managed to capture Aizawa, because the binding cloth Momo created shrinks when exposed to high temperatures. Finally, they emerged victorious. Seeing Aizawa and Shoto acknowledge her, Momo was deeply moved. On Ochako's team, they were overwhelmed by the space hero. So, she tried to think of how Midoriya would escape from this situation. Suddenly, Yuga asked, "Do you like Midoriya, don't you?" This made Ochako embarrassed, and she let go and rushed towards the space hero. Thanks to the combat techniques she had trained with Gunhead, so Ochako managed to capture the space hero. Seeing Ochako's victory made Midoriya very happy. Meanwhile, Mina and Denki were facing off against the principal. This left them curious about what the principal's quirk could be. Suddenly, a lot of iron debris fell on them. It turns out he was operating a crane to demolish this place. His quirk turns out to be high specs. It helps him be smarter than normal people. And the principal had calculated everything. He traps Mina's group, so the principal won the battle, surprising Midoriya. At this point, Ochako has returned to the monitoring room, so Lita immediately congratulates her on passing the test. But, upon seeing Midoriya, this made Ochako embarrassed. Kyoka's team was battling Present Mike. He was waiting for them at the gate, but he waited too long, so Present Mike used his voice quirk to call them over. Much to their annoyance, suddenly, Kyoka saw an ant, so she immediately told Koda to use his Anavoice quirk to control the ants. But Koda was afraid of insects. However, Koda is afraid of insects. Suddenly, Present Mike attacked them, so Kyoka immediately used earphone jack to emit a counter voice, but her voice wasn't as strong as Present Mike's. Kyoka saw Koda being scared, so she encouraged him. He tried to overcome his fear of insects, and Koda spoke to them. Suddenly, bugs appeared and clung to Present Mike's leg, making him scared. Thanks to that, they achieved victory. By now, the other members of the class had all passed the test. Finally, it was Midoriya and Bakugo's turn. But Bakugo was still very angry with Midoriya, so he didn't want to cooperate. He wanted to defeat All Might on his own. At this point, no matter how Midoriya advises Bakugo, Bakugo wouldn't listen to him. Bakugo even hits Midoriya because he dared to stand in his way. Seeing the situation tense up, making everyone worried, when Bakugo and Midoriya were arguing, All Might immediately attacked them. With just one punch, he destroyed part of the city. Seeing All Might's power made Midoriya and Bakugo scared. But Bakugo still wanted to confront him directly, so he dazzled All Might. When Bakugo attacked, then he was caught by All Might. But Bakugo managed to attack him. All Might realized Bakugo was determined to defeat him, so he threw Bakugo to the ground. Next was Midoriya. He made Midoriya scared, so he immediately used One for All and jumped back. Suddenly, he collided with Bakugo, because one of them wanted to fight, while the other wanted to run. At this moment, Midoriya continued to advise Bakugo to run away, but Bakugo remained determined and said, "I will definitely win, that's what it means to be a hero." Midoriya remembered how Bakugo used to idolize All Might. Suddenly, All Might continued to attack them, causing them to be in great despair. Midoriya realized he admired Bakugo's strong determination to win. Now, Bakugo stood up again, so All Might advised him to cooperate with Midoriya, but Bakugo said, "I'd rather lose than accept help from a useless person." This made Midoriya angry. When All Might was about to defeat Bakugo, Midoriya immediately jumped in and punched him in the face. Then, Midoriya carried Bakugo away. All Might realized he had been too careless. At this point, Midoriya continued to persuade Bakugo to cooperate with him, and he told Bakugo that he had always admired him since they were kids, because he always wants to win. It made Bakugo angry. Bakugo realized with All Might's strength, they wouldn't be able to escape from him, so their only option was to fight him. At this moment, All Might was still searching for Midoriya and Bakugo. Suddenly, Bakugo appeared behind All Might, drawing his attention. Unexpectedly, Midoriya appeared behind All Might, and immediately used Bakugo's weapon to create an explosion to attack All Might. Surprising him, Midoriya and Bakugo immediately ran away, while Bakugo was still uncomfortable because he had to cooperate with Midoriya. Seeing them cooperate so perfectly surprised All Might, because they were completely opposite. At this point, All Might realized there wasn't much time left, so he decided to use all of his strength, while Midoriya and Bakugo were trying to run as fast as they could towards the gate. Suddenly, All Might quickly caught up to them, and immediately attacked Bakugo and Midoriya, leaving them no time to resist. Seeing the overwhelming power of All Might made everyone worried. Bakugo realized he was completely outmatched, because All Might was the greatest hero he wanted to surpass. When All Might advised them to give up, Bakugo immediately attacked him with a massive explosion. Suddenly, Bakugo threw Midoriya flying through the gate, but All Might immediately chased after him, causing Midoriya to fall down. Bakugo continued chasing after All Might, even though his arm was injured, but Bakugo still tries to attack All Might. Midoriya realizes Bakugo is reaching his limit, so he immediately tries to reach the gate. However, All Might continues to pursue him. Thus, Bakugo keeps attacking All Might, but he was knocked down by All Might. Seeing Bakugo's determination, Midoriya immediately used One for All and punched All Might, making him lose his vigilance. Midoriya then carried Bakugo and ran away. At this moment, All Might realized Midoriya didn't run through the gate alone, and he returned, bringing Bakugo along, because he always fearlessly rescues others. That's his personality. In the end, they won, making Ochako's team very happy. By evening, the doctor scolded All Might for injuring his students, but All Might realized both had improved greatly, and they would continue to grow stronger. On Tamura's side, he remained curious about Midoriya. Suddenly, two people came to find him, because they wanted to join the League of Villains, but Tamura chased them away, because he saw them as too weak, so they introduced themselves. This girl's name is Himiko. Turns out she's a serial killer, because she admires Stain, so she wants to join the League of Villains. Next is Dabi. He said, I will succeed the will of the hero killer. Seeing them here because of Stain, making Tamura angry, when he was about to attack them, they immediately counterattacked, but they were stopped by Kurogiri using the warp gate. He advised Tamura to take advantage of them. However, Tamura angrily left, leaving them confused about what he was thinking. Kurogiri said Tamura would soon give them an answer. On Denki's team, they are angry because they failed the exercise test, so they couldn't participate in the forest training camp. At this point, Aizawa announced to the whole class that they all could participate in the forest training camp, making Mina's team very happy. It turns out Aizawa had lied to make them strive harder, but they still had to study more at school afterward. The next morning, Midoriya's team went shopping together to prepare for the forest training camp, which made them very happy, because the shopping center was so large, so they split up to go shopping. Now, only Midoriya and Ochako were together, which made Ochako shy and run away, because Yuga said she liked Midoriya. Suddenly, someone approached Midoriya and started talking to him, praising him for facing the hero killer. So, Midoriya thought he was a fan of his. Suddenly, his hand grasped Midoriya's neck, and Midoriya realized, he is Tamura. He said, I'm here just to talk to you, and he warned Midoriya not to play any tricks, or he would use decay to turn him into dust. He even threatened to attack everyone else here, so Midoriya had to listen to him. At this point, Tamura told Midoriya that he was very annoyed with the hero killer, because the hero killer wasn't part of his League of Villains. But everyone paid attention to the hero killer. Tamura asked him, how am I different from the hero killer? While Ochako was feeling guilty for leaving Midoriya alone, she quickly returned to find him. Meanwhile, Midoriya told Tamura that he could understand the hero killer, because their wills both originated from All Might, and the hero killer's goal wasn't to destroy everything, so he was different from Tamura, because Tamura always wanted to discard everything as useless. Looking into Tamura's eyes immediately made Midoriya feel scared, but Midoriya helped him understand how he and the hero killer are different, because everything is because of All Might. At this point, Tamura felt more comfortable, but he was gripping Midoriya's neck, making him unable to breathe. Fortunately, Ochako arrived, so he let go of Midoriya and he left, but Midoriya asked him, what is All for One planning? But Tamura said, "Next time, I'll kill you all." Then, he left. At this moment, Tamura realized he was completely different from the hero killer, and his goal is to create a world without All Might. That evening, Midoriya reported Tamura to the police. As he was about to leave, Midoriya met All Might. He was very relieved that Midoriya was safe. At this point, Midoriya's mother also arrived, because she was very worried about Midoriya. At this moment, Tsukachi realized Midoriya's class would become a target of the League of Villains, so they needed to heighten their vigilance, and they are determined to defeat All for One once again. On the side of All for One, he was very pleased, because he realized Tamura had found his own ideal. It turned out his goal was to turn Tamura into another version of himself. On Tamura's side, he was gathering followers who admired the hero killer, making him delighted, because his game was about to begin. At this time, Aizawa announced that summer had arrived, so Midoriya's Class A has also prepared and is ready for the forest training camp. This made Ochako very happy, but Midoriya felt embarrassed, because she was too close to him. However, Ochako remembered what Yuga had said. She also awkwardly stepped back. Unexpectedly, Nito's Class B also participates in the forest training camp. So, they set off, making everyone very excited. At this time, Aizawa stopped the bus, but Mineta thought it was to use the restroom. Suddenly, two girls appeared. Aizawa introduced them as heroes from the Pussycats team. This delighted Midoriya, because they were a professional rescue hero team on the mountain. She said their training camp cabin was at the foot of the mountain, which surprised everyone, because the place was very far from here. Everyone realized something wasn't right. She said they had 3 hours to get there, or they wouldn't get lunch, which made everyone scared and rush onto the bus. But all of them were immediately thrown down against the cliff. At this point, they realized they had to cross this forest on their own. When Mineta was about to go to the restroom, he encountered a giant monster. Luckily, Midoriya managed to save him in time, while Mandalay felt Aizawa was too strict with his students. It turns out he wanted to enhance their quirks sooner, because villains were targeting them. At this point, Midoriya used One for All. Shoto, Iida, and Bakugo also attacked the monster. They managed to defeat it, while the others felt relieved. Bakugo realized there were still more monsters, so they realized it was time to fight. Midoriya's class then fought together against the monsters. At this point, they had coordinated very well together, and they had collectively defeated many monsters in the forest. While this boy felt becoming a hero was meaningless, by evening, they had also overcome the forest and reached the training camp cabin, leaving them all very exhausted. Pixie Bob was pleased that they had made it here, and she remarked that Midoriya's group was the best in combat. At this moment, Midoriya asked who this boy was. Turns out his name was Koda, Mandalay's grandson. So, Midoriya approached Koda to start a conversation. But, Koda immediately hit him. It turns out Koda doesn't like heroes. At this point, Aizawa told the class to go eat and rest. So, they all ate together, finding the food delicious that day, while Midoriya remained focused on Koda. Later, they went to take a bath, but Mineta wanted to peep into the girl's bath. So, he tried to climb over the wall. Unexpectedly, Koda intervened and stopped Mineta. However, when he looked over into the girl's bath area, Koda was startled and fell. Fortunately, Midoriya caught him in time. Midoriya then took Koda back to the cabin's office to rest. Midoriya couldn't understand why Koda disliked heroes, so Mandalay explained to him that Koda's parents were once heroes, but they sacrificed themselves to protect civilians 2 years ago. This had caused Koda a lot of pain. Since then, Koda no longer liked heroes. Midoriya realizes that Tamura also doesn't like heroes, similar to Koda. The next morning, Aizawa began quirk training. If they passed this training session, they would receive temporary licenses to fight against villains. Suddenly, Aizawa threw a ball to Bakugo, telling him to throw it away. His previous record was 700 meters, but this time, he only managed 709 meters, causing everyone to be surprised. Aizawa said that, since enrollment, they had only progressed in combat and spirit, but their quirks had not actually developed. Therefore, they needed to train to upgrade their quirks. At this time, Tamura had formed a villain group to attack the students of the forest training camp. Class B was also ready for quirk training. This time, they were determined to surpass Class A. Upon arriving at the training location, they were immediately surprised, because they saw Bakugo plunging his hands into boiling water to create a massive explosion. Shoto trained to balance his ice and fire quirks. Honta continuously produced tape. Ojiro repeatedly used his tail to strike Kirishima. Denki had to charge a massive electric battery, while Yuga fired lasers continuously. Ochako trained to adapt to a zero-gravity environment. Iida had to continuously run to increase leg endurance. Tsuyu used her tongue to climb mountains, while Sato and Momo had to eat a lot of sweets to help them boost their quirk usage. Class B watched Class A's intense training resembling hell, which surprised them. At this point, the 4 members of the Pussycats appeared in full, and they would be responsible for supervising and assisting everyone in their training. Midoriya used one for all at 5% to attack Tiger, but he was knocked back into a tree trunk, which frightened everyone. Midoriya was very exhausted, but he remembered how much All Might had believed in him, so Midoriya struggled to get up and continue fighting Tiger. During this time, Koda observed Midoriya. By the evening, after they finished training, they had to cook their own meals, but they were all very tired, so Iida helped lift everyone's spirits, and they started cooking together. Finally, they had dinner together, which made everyone very happy, but Midoriya noticed Koda walking alone. He realizes that Koda is very hungry, so Midoriya brought food to Koda, but Koda still didn't like him, and Koda felt they were showing off their quirks. Suddenly, Midoriya realized that Koda's parents were the hero duo Water Hose, which surprised Koda. At this point, Koda expressed disdain for the current society, where heroes and villains fighting each other seemed meaningless, because they were all people who liked causing violence. This made Midoriya empathize with Koda, so he told Koda about the story of a quirkless boy who still wanted to become a hero. Despite no one accepting that, however, Koda still sent Midoriya away, so he left the food for Koda and departed. At this time, the villains were preparing to act, making them very excited, but Dabi said they had to wait until they gathered enough people. While Midoriya's class was sleeping soundly, and they knew nothing about the villain's plan, the next morning, they had to continue training, which left everyone exhausted. So, Aizawa reminded them to remember their starting points, which made Midoriya think of All Might. He continued training with Tiger. By evening, they cooked together again. But Shoto noticed Midoriya looking worried. It turned out he was worried about Koda, and he didn't know how to help him because Koda wouldn't listen to Midoriya. So, Shoto suggests to Midoriya that he needed to use words accompanied by actions. That way, his words would have more meaning. Midoriya realized this approach was very similar to All Might's, but Shoto criticized Midoriya for always meddling in other people's business. At this time, classes A and B organized a courage test game, but Mina's group of 5 was left behind for additional training, which disappointed them greatly. The rule was that classes A and B would use their quirks to threaten each other in the forest, and they would draw lots to pair up, but Midoriya realized he was left out alone. At this point, Class A began entering the forest, while Class B was very excited, having previously threatened Bakugo and Shoto. Suddenly, they all fainted. Kendo realized the smoke was toxic. Turns out the villains had started their move, making them thrilled, because this time they intended to kill all the students here. Unexpectedly, Pixie Bob was defeated, which surprised everyone. They didn't understand how the villains found them. Midoriya immediately worried about Koda. At this moment, Koda saw the forest under attack. Suddenly, someone appeared behind him. Meanwhile, Mina's group was being sent back to the training camp cabin by Aizawa, which left them very disappointed. They encountered Nato, who had also been captured and brought to the camp. Suddenly, Mandalay used her telepathy to contact Aizawa's group. She informed them that they were under attack by the villains. Aizawa immediately rushed to the scene, but he was unexpectedly attacked by Dabi. At this point, the villains revealed to Midoriya's group that they were the League of Villains, and they were followers of Stain. When Spinner saw Iida, he immediately took out his weapon to seek revenge for Stain, which enraged Tiger, so he decided to fight him. Mandalay immediately told Midoriya's group to run away, but Midoriya said he would go find Koda. On Koda's side, he encountered a villain that frightened Koda, so Koda ran away, but the villain immediately used his quirk to attack Koda, making Koda remember his parents' death. But the villain who killed them has not been caught yet, so Koda remembered his face and quirk very clearly. Immediately Koda was shocked, because the villain in front of him was the one who had killed his parents when Koda was in danger. Luckily, Midoriya arrived in time to save Koda. He realized Midoriya was the person on his kill list. Unfortunately, he had broken Midoriya's phone, so he couldn't call for backup. Midoriya realized he wasn't strong enough to fight him, but seeing Koda scared, Midoriya decided to activate One for All, and he will protect Koda. While Shoto and Bakugo are trying to leave the forest, suddenly, they saw a villain, making Bakugo excited. Mandalay was fighting Spinner, so she continued to use telepathy to distract him. Suddenly, Mandalay was pulled back. Fortunately, Tiger saved her. He realized his name is Magna, and he is a dangerous villain. Midoriya was worrying, while this villain was quite excited, because he was about to kill Midoriya. So, he immediately used Quirk muscle augmentation to attack. Unexpectedly, he was very strong and hit Midoriya into the mountain wall. Suddenly, he asked where Bakugo was. It turned out Bakugo was also his target. He continued to attack Midoriya, very quickly. He managed to defeat him. Midoriya realized he was too strong and too fast. But, he still tried to stand up and punch him. Unexpectedly, Midoriya's strength wasn't enough, so, he continued to be knocked away by Muscular. He told him, "My quirk is muscle augmentation. So, your quirk to me is just a weak quirk." Then, he continued to attack Midoriya. And he completely overwhelmed him, causing Midoriya to continue to collapse. When he was about to kill Midoriya, then, Koda immediately threw a stone at him. He realized Muscular was the one who had tortured his parents like that, before he killed them. At that moment, he recognized he was the son of Waterhose. And he blamed them for making him use fake eyes. He even said he killed them just because he liked it, making Koda shocked. When he was about to attack Koda, Midoriya jumped up to attack him, and he caught Muscular, made Muscular very pleased. But, Midoriya used 100% one for all. Immediately made Muscular feel worried. So, Midoriya unleashed an extremely powerful punch, causing the entire mountain to shatter, while Koda was falling down. Luckily, Midoriya managed to catch him. Seeing Midoriya's arm broken, surprising Koda, didn't expect Muscular could still stand up. Midoriya didn't understand. He had used 100% of one for all. Yet he still hadn't defeated him. Muscular said, "Until now, I've just been playing around with you, so, now I'll fight seriously." Immediately, he used muscle augmentation to attack Midoriya. He realized that Muscular had become much stronger. At this point, Midoriya was constantly thinking of ways to escape from him, but he realized that it was impossible. So, Midoriya had no choice but to fight, because he was determined to protect Koda. Midoriya tells Koda to run back to the training camp cabin first. However, Koda realizes Midoriya is not his match. Nevertheless, Midoriya continues to use 100% one for all, and he immediately attacks Muscular, but he's too strong. Muscular completely overwhelms Midoriya. However, he still tries to urge Koda to run away. Suddenly, Muscular continues muscle augmentation, and he forces Midoriya down to the ground. At this moment, Midoriya realizes he's about to die. So, he apologizes to All Might and his mother, because he can't fulfill their expectations. Then, Midoriya faints. Suddenly, Koda uses water to attack Muscular, unintentionally helping Midoriya wake up. Muscular says, "Wait a second, I'll come kill you right now." Suddenly, Midoriya stands up again. Muscular realizes his power is increasing. Unexpectedly, Midoriya uses 1,000,000% one for all, and he shattered every single fiber of Muscular's muscles. Finally, Midoriya delivered a powerful punch to Muscular's face. Thus, he emerged victorious. Koda witnessed Midoriya risking his life to protect him, which reminded him of Mandalay's words. "Someday you'll meet someone who'll risk their life to protect you." This deeply moved Koda, and he realized the true meaning of being a hero. On the other side, Tamura was planning to destroy this hero society, so, he viewed this as a game. And his first step is to have the Vanguard Action Squad of the League of Villains kill hero academies. He even treats them as prey. At this point, Midoriya has defeated Muscular, but he is also exhausted, which worries Koda. It turns out Midoriya had planned to defeat Muscular, but he realized Muscular was very strong. If all villains here have strength like Muscular's, then everyone will be in danger. Therefore, he still had to continue to rescue them. Midoriya saw the forest burning, so he said to Koda, "We need your quirk." This surprised Koda. Midoriya immediately carried Koda on his back and used one for all to run as fast as possible to where everyone was. On Aizawa's side, he was attacked by Dabi, but he managed to dodge his attack. Aizawa then used his erasure quirk. Aizawa quickly apprehended Dabi. Suddenly, Aizawa saw Ida's group, which distracted him. So, Dabi managed to escape and stand up. But, it turned out to be just a clone of Dabi. He then told Ida's group to stay put, so he could run into the forest to rescue everyone. It was actually Twice who created clones for Dabi. At this point, Dabi asked him to create 2 more clones, because they needed to keep the teachers occupied. on Midoriya's side. He tried to run as fast as possible. Suddenly, he encountered Aizawa, so Midoriya informed him of the situation. However, Aizawa realized Midoriya had just been through a fierce battle. Meanwhile, Tiger was battling Magna, but he managed to evade all her attacks. At the same time, Mandalay was fighting Spinner and was in danger. Fortunately, Midoriya was able to save her in time and informed her that Kodo was still safe. Midoriya immediately asked Mandalay to inform everyone. Aizawa allowed them to use their quirks to fight against the villains, and they fought under his command, so they no longer had to worry about being punished. At this moment, Kodo was very worried about Midoriya. Thus, Aizawa comforted him and said, "After everything is over, you should thank him yourself." At this moment, Midoriya realized their target was Bakugo, so he immediately ran off. Magna realized Midoriya had defeated Muscular, which surprised him, so he felt compelled to kill him right away. Unexpectedly, Spinner held him back, because Midoriya had been saved by Stain. Stain recognized him as a hero. While they were off guard, Tiger and Mandalay immediately subdued them. At this moment, Mandalay informed everyone that the villain's target was none other than Kacchan. This made Bakugo furious, because they kept calling him Kacchan. Suddenly, he was attacked. Shoto advised Bakugo to run away, but Bakugo was enraged, because he realized Midoriya had disclosed this. Suddenly, he resumed attacking them. Fortunately, Shoto created an ice barrier to stop him. It turns out Moonfish's quirk is Blade Tooth. Shoto warned Bakugo not to use fire too aggressively, if not, they would set the forest on fire. At that moment, Mustard was creating a gas enveloping the entire forest. Suddenly, he was attacked by Tetsu, but he shot at him. Luckily, Tetsu's body is made of steel. However, his gas mask was broken. As he continued to attack, Mustard shot at him. It turns out he also saw Kendo's location. He kept taunting them and disappeared. This made Tetsu furious, but he was shot at again. Mustard criticized him as foolish, because Tetsu only charged forward. Mustard realized he was reaching his limit, so he continued to attack Tetsu. Suddenly, Kendo attacked him with her quirk, blowing away all his gas, which surprised him. Suddenly, Tetsu immediately punched him from behind. Finally, they defeated Mustard. On Midoriya's side, he was running as fast as possible towards Bakugo. Suddenly, he was attacked, but Shoji managed to save him. He said that Fumikage's quirk was out of control, because the darker it gets, the harder it is for him to control his quirk, so they needed to defeat Fumikage first. They witnessed Fumikage's terrifying power, which worried Midoriya. It turns out earlier Shoji and Fumikage had been attacked. This caused Shoji's arm to be severed, but his quirk is dupli arms, so he can still regenerate it. Unfortunately, this inadvertently made Fumikage lose control, because he saw Shoji injured. At this moment, Fumikage was still trying to regain control of his quirk, but his dark shadow was too strong. Shoji realized he couldn't save Fumikage alone, so he suggested Midoriya stay and help him, because Shoji knew Midoriya would never abandon his friends. But Midoriya was in a difficult position, because he needed to get to Bakugo quickly, so Midoriya made a decision. On Bakugo and Shoto's side, they were still being attacked by Moonfish, which made Bakugo furious, because he couldn't use his full power here. But Shoto advised Bakugo to stay calm. Suddenly, they felt something approaching. It turned out Midoriya and Shoji were luring Dark Shadow towards them. Unexpectedly, Dark Shadow attacked and subdued Moonfish. Before that, Midoriya had planned this with Shoji. Midoriya couldn't decide to save just one of them, so he chose to save both. Seeing Dark Shadow surprised Bakugo. Shoji said Dark Shadow was out of control, so they had to use fire to control it, but Moonfish was very angry. Thus, he attacked Dark Shadow. Unexpectedly, he was immediately defeated by Dark Shadow. When Dark Shadow was about to attack them, Bakugo and Shoto quickly used fire. They helped Fumikage regain control of Dark Shadow. At this moment, Fumikage apologized to Shoji and Midoriya, because he couldn't control his anger, which unintentionally released Dark Shadow, but they were happy that Fumikage was okay. At this moment, Midoriya said the League of Villains' target was Bakugo, so they had to find a way to get Bakugo back to the training camp cabin. Midoriya believed that with their current team, they could even defeat All Might, but this made Bakugo furious, because he didn't need them to protect him. On Ochako's side, she was injured. It turned out Himiko had attacked her, surprising both of them, because she knew all the information about them. At this moment, Himiko was very excited, so she wanted to take more of their blood. When Himiko attacked, Suyu immediately threw Ochako away, thus, Ochako could escape. But Himiko stabbed Suyu's tongue, which delighted Himiko, and she captured Suyu. As she was about to take more blood from Suyu, then, Ochako ran over. Unexpectedly, Ochako dodged Himiko's attack, and she immediately used the combat skills she had learned. So, Ochako managed to subdue Himiko. Suddenly, Himiko asked, "You like someone, don't you?" It turned out Ochako always wanted to be like Midoriya. Hearing Himiko's words distracted Ochako. Suddenly, she stabbed a syringe into Ochako's thigh to draw her blood. Fortunately, Midoriya's group arrived in time, so Himiko had to retreat. Suddenly, she saw Midoriya, which made her blush. Then, Himiko left. Seeing that both of them weren't too seriously injured, Midoriya felt relieved. Suddenly, they realized Bakugo had disappeared, which shocked Midoriya because he had been too careless. Suddenly, another villain appeared. He said he had captured Bakugo. This made Midoriya furious and he said, "Give him back." Thus, Shoto immediately attacked him, but he easily dodged it. Shoji realized he had not only captured Bakugo, however, Fumikage as well. So, Shoto continued to attack him, but he dodged again. And he informed the other villains that they had completed their mission. Thus, it was time for them to leave. Midoriya was determined not to let him escape, so they chased after him. At this moment, Dabi and Twice were very happy, because their mission was completed. Unexpectedly, Yugo was hiding nearby and overheard their conversation. It turned out he was taking Kyoka back to the training camp cabin. Dabi said that Tamura had given him a Nomu, and he ordered the Nomu to kill the students. So, now he would call the Nomu back. At this moment, the Nomu was chasing Momo and Yosetsu. When they were in danger, suddenly, the Nomu stopped and left. Momo realized they had captured Bakugo, so she created a tracking device, and Momo asked Yosetsu to implant it into the Nomu's body. Finally, they were safe. On Tiger's side, he had captured Magna. Spinner has also been captured, but he remains steadfast in Stain's ideology. He wants to kill all the corrupt heroes. Suddenly, Kurogiri appeared to rescue Magna and Spinner. On Midoriya's team, they were still chasing the masked villain, but he was too fast. They couldn't catch up with him. Suddenly, Midoriya came up with an idea. He immediately told Ochako to use zero gravity to make them throw him away. But Ochako was worried that Midoriya was injured. Seeing Midoriya's determination, Ochako immediately bandaged his hands, so they started cooperating with each other. Suyu then threw all three towards the masked villain. At this moment, Himiko informed Dabi she had taken blood from the three people, making her very excited. Suddenly, Midoriya's group caught the masked villain, surprising them. Kirishima's group was worried about everyone, so he wanted to go save them, but their teachers didn't let them go. Suddenly, they were attacked by Dabi, surprising them. However, he was immediately caught by Blood Hero. Now, Dabi told them, their goal is to shake the trust of this society, and he wants all the citizens to see the poor management of the Hero Academy, because they let their students get captured, making everyone angry. When they planned to attack him, Aizawa returned. It turns out he was just a clone of Dabi. At this point, he handed Koda to them, and Aizawa immediately ran off to support those outside. Meanwhile, Midoriya's group had captured Mr. Compress, so Dabi used Blue Flame to attack Midoriya's group. As they all attacked together, Himiko captured Midoriya and said, "I like you." When she was about to attack Midoriya, Shoji immediately knocked Himiko away, making her angry. Meanwhile, Shoto was fighting Twice, but he easily destroyed his ice. At that moment, Mr. Compress escaped. Dabi asked, "Where is Bakugo?" But he discovered it had disappeared. It turns out Shoji noticed his bag and took it, so they immediately ran away, but he remained unconcerned. Suddenly, Midoriya's group encountered Nomu and Kurogiri. Kurogiri said their time was up, so he created warp gates for the villains to escape. At this moment, Mr. Compress informed Midoriya that the two marbles they took were fake. It turns out Bakugo and Fumikage were hidden inside his mouth. They were surprised by this, so they immediately chased after him. When Mr. Compress thought he would escape, he was hit by Yuga's laser, causing two of his marbles to fly out of his mouth. So, Shoto and Shoji tried to catch them. Unexpectedly, Dabi managed to retrieve one of the marbles, and he captured Bakugo. Then, he quickly took Bakugo away, and Midoriya immediately tried to chase after them, but he couldn't catch up. leaving Midoriya very disappointed. After the villains left, paramedics and police arrived. They immediately treated the injured students. However, Bakugo was taken by the League of Villains. The police managed to arrest 3 villains. Meanwhile, Midoriya remained unconscious. The next morning, many reporters came to the Hero Academy. So, the teachers immediately organized an emergency meeting. This made them disappointed, because the students were taken by the League of Villains. It was a disgrace to them. The principal realized the purpose of capturing Bakugo was to turn him into a villain. So, this will be the end of the Hero Academy. At this moment, President Mike suspected betrayal, because only the teachers knew the location of the forest training camp. While everyone was trying to figure out a way, suddenly, All Might received a phone call, so he stepped outside immediately. It turned out Tsukachi called him with news that they could locate the League of Villains' whereabouts. This surprised All Might. So, he quickly regained his determination, and this time, he resolved to capture all of them. Meanwhile, the news continued reporting on Bakugo's kidnapping, which pleased Tamura greatly, as their plan had successfully unfolded, while Midoriya was still in the hospital, and he was completely desperate, because he couldn't rescue Bakugo. Suddenly, the whole class came to visit Midoriya. At that moment, Midoriya was blaming himself, because Bakugo was captured right in front of him. But, Midoriya couldn't save Bakugo. Suddenly, Kirishima said, "We'll save him." It turned out that yesterday, both of them had inadvertently heard the conversation between All Might and Momo, because Momo had attached a tracking device to the Nomu. So, it will help them locate the League of Villains. When Iida learned they would go save Bakugo themselves, it made Iida angry, because he was afraid they would hinder All Might. But Kirishima said, "If my friends can't save him either, then I don't deserve to be called a hero." And they all awaited Midoriya's decision. That's it for today's video. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel to support Oni-chan in the next videos. Thank you for watching. Love you all.